Well, good morning, everybody. This is the news that we are waking up to for Thursday, April 17th, 2025, day 1149 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. I'm Peter Alexievich, and we'll start with last night's missile and drone attacks. There were some missiles that came in. I do notice that the Ukrainian armed forces interception rate of drones drops every time there is a combined missile attack. And so last night, we saw 25 drones taken out, shot down. Another 30 drones taken out with electronic warfare, likely decoys or simulator drones. But that was out of 75. That's an interception rate in the 70%, right? And it's because I don't know why, right? Like, let's be clear. I don't know why. But I do notice a pattern. When the Air Force is scrambling to intercept Iskander missiles, as they were last night, and to the best of my knowledge, unsuccessfully, what we see is they seem to be prioritizing the limited resources that they have to take out the missiles. And of course you would. The missiles are far more dangerous and do far more destruction than the drones. So we'll talk about the hits last night in just a second. But those missiles all got through. Now, whether or not they hit their targets, you'll have to answer that. You'll have to make that decision yourself. We'll take a look at what civilian infrastructure was hit. And it was all civilian infrastructure, by the way. Now, last night on the live, somebody asked about the Mirage and F-16 jets and what they're doing. Now, as I understand it, integrating a new technology like an F-16, like the Mirages, into your arsenal as a capability, not just something you have, is a difficult process. For the last nearly a year now, 10 months, the Ukrainians have definitely been using those Western weapons for air defense, to strike missiles and incoming drones, and to keep the skies as clear as they can, right? That's what they've been using them for. But what we have seen in the last couple of weeks, this is just in the last 2 weeks, it seems to be a new evolution of the use of these planes for close air support to pummel the Russian front lines. Now, if you guys remember November, December, January, February, it was like every other day, sometimes every day, the Ukrainians were hitting with drones air defense systems all up and down the front line. It appears that now that there is a lack of those air defense systems on the front line, not a zero, right, a not zero number of them, but a lack of them, the Ukrainians are taking more risks with their planes. Now, this cost the life of a F-16 pilot and one of the F-16s just last week. But I don't think anybody can doubt the effectiveness of these operations. There's a MiG up there, and then these are the weapons that they're using, the French hammer and the GDB bombs or something. I apologize, but that's what that is on the left. Now, what's marked on here, and I want to point out that this graphic is taken from reporting from Ukraine News on YouTube. It's a great graphic. It shows the weapons in use. It shows a Ukrainian MiG there, which is also participating in these operations. And then it shows all the hits, 19 hits. Intended, it appears, certainly Ukraine, reporting from Ukraine suggests this, that these are hits to disrupt the Russian spring offensive. Hits against personnel concentrations, hits against command posts, hits against drone operators and drone launching sites. As the Russians accumulate resources at the front, preparing to try to push forward, the Ukrainian Air Force is eliminating them. That appears to be the strategy here, and it appears to be having some effect. Certainly, the Russians are not making any advances, and they are suffering large losses. Down in the Zaporizhia direction, I'm sorry, no, it was in the Kherson direction. It's my understanding that the command post for the southern military district of Russia was hit, taking out a decapitation strike, right? Taking out all the top level commanders. Their replacements came in the next week and they got hit. So Ukraine is doing all that it can in its power to disrupt the Russian spring offensive. This is particularly true of the Belgorod incursion. That's its job, is to pin Russian troops inside Russia so that they can't attack inside Ukraine. And there are Ukrainians dying every day for that mission. And it's working. As costly as it is working. So I do think that what we're seeing here is an evolution of the use of fighter jets in this war. They've moved now from just clearing the skies, keeping the skies free as best they can, to pummeling Russian frontline positions. The French are providing 50 in the lower left right-hand corner. There's that French Hammer missile. The French are providing 50 of them a month. That's 50 significant targets that can be hit with those French hammers every month. So this is the current state of affairs. The Russians are trying to push forward. They're trying to accumulate troops and resources to do just that. And the Ukrainians are thwarting them as much as they possibly can with a precision use of these Western weapons on the front line. Now, the mineral deal is a big deal, right? There is no, now again, I cannot say this enough. As I understand it, there's no deal. There's just a framework under which a deal might be struck. And that framework is being rewritten every day by Trump and his minions as Ukraine keeps rejecting the insane demands that they're making. At first, Trump wanted the minerals deal to pay back America $350 billion for the aid we've already sent. Aid that was meant to be a grant. How he rewrites history, where you get off, it's beyond me, right? I admit, I do not understand it. However, they have retrenched now, and Trump is no longer asking for $350 billion back. He's just asking for $100 billion back. Now, we didn't even give the Ukrainians $100 billion in aid. It's about $83 billion. And that's only if you count the weapons at full retail price, what our replacement cost is, $1 million a piece for an ATACMS. Those ATACMS were goddamn 30, 40 years old. If we depreciate them, or even just count the decommissioning costs, because they were about to expire and needed to be decommissioned, it's likely that the U.S. has really only sent Ukraine about $20 billion in aid, in military aid. And yet Trump is insisting on repayment of $100 billion. And his Treasury Secretary, Bessent, told Bloomberg News that we are very, very close. It could even be signed early this week. Now, that sentiment was echoed by a member of the Ukrainian parliament. And I can only hope that if Ukraine signs this deal, that they really are getting something out of it, either in security guarantees or future weapons deliveries. I think we saw something very interesting happen this week when Zelensky offered to spend $50 billion on U.S. weapons. It upended the entire Trump narrative that the Ukrainians are freeloaders looking for a handout. No, they have the money. They want to buy weapons now, right? This is, of course, with financing from the European Union, who is on Ukraine's side still, unlike the traitor Trump. Trump dismissed that idea. Tens of billions of dollars into the American defense industry, and he blew it off, blaming Ukraine for the war and saying Ukraine's always looking for missiles. Trump is caught between the Scylla and Charybdis. He wants the money in America for the defense industry. He wants the defense industry in debt to him, dear leader. But he can't sell Ukraine weapons and not piss off his boss, Vladimir Putin. It'll be interesting to see how this thing plays out, but I pray to God that the Ukrainians don't get fucked too hard on it and that they do what's in their national interest. Now, as I said on last night's live, in my mind, the big news is this tumbling oil price. Globally, economists are expecting a major global recession. And so naturally, the price of oil is falling. It's also falling because OPEC has upped production. They announced that last October. And it was curious to me that OPEC would be upping production given that it would hurt Russia, right? A falling oil price is bad for Russia. Russia's now underwater with the oil price. And so I brought up this 5-year chart of oil prices to point out that the price of oil currently, this is North Sea Brent at 63.41, is the lowest it's been since 2021. Now remember, that's the height of COVID. And what everybody forgets is that during Trump's first presidency, Mohammed bin Salman and Vladimir Putin conspired to drive down global oil prices in 2018 and 2019, trying to bankrupt the American shale oil industry, which is very inefficient, very dirty. I'm not a fan. But it's American business, right? And a foreign adversary attempted to bankrupt it. We should all be worried about that. It's got a price point, it costs about $52 to $55 a barrel to get shale oil out of the ground. It's not an efficient industry, very, very dirty, as I say. With oil coming down to this price, we're back in that territory where the American shale oil business is threatened. Now, right, and that might explain why, or be one of the factors that would explain why OPEC is upping its production, because it's at a point now where it's got a friend in the White House, right? Mohammed bin Salman and Donald Trump are brothers in arms, along with Vladimir Putin. And they may just be trying to wreck the American shale oil industry. One possible explanation. It could be, too, that they understand that the tariffs coming will have global impact, and they may be trying to soften the economic impacts of the tariffs for themselves and their own people. I don't know, right? But that's not an impossibility. Now, at this very moment, right, this is a broad daylight attack. I can play this video for you. Do you hear the crackling there at the beginning? That's an ammunition cook-off from a previous attack, not the one we're witnessing. That's a big blast right there. Yet what we're looking at is the home of the 110th Missile Brigade of the Russian Federation in Ivanov, Russia. Now, this is on the other side of Moscow, which means all these drones had to fly through Russian airspace, through Moscow's airspace, 500 miles, 800 kilometers, to strike these targets in the middle of the day. Unreal, right? This is the facility down here that was attacked. These buildings up here are what was hit yesterday. And I can show you some pictures of the aftermath of that. It appears that down here, the hardened missile silos where the Iskanders and other ammunition are kept is the target today. So remember, the 112th Missile Brigade of the Russian Federation was responsible, or at least is believed to have been responsible by the Ukrainians, for the Palm Sunday massacre in Sumy. This is a clear answer to that attack, and it's the second day in the row. So today we believe that the target is the hardened missile storage down here. Yesterday, the target were the administrative offices, and 2 buildings at least were hit. They're marked down here. The one in blue is the 2-story building you see there, and the one with the red marker is the 3-story building you see there. And you can see these things have fire damage from floor to roof, right, ground level to roof. And so we don't know what the casualty count was, but looking at Russian telegram channels and some other sources, it's suspected that as many as 12 Russian soldiery were eliminated in these attacks, not to mention the administrative offices of the HQ of the 112th Missile Brigade. Now, this guy right here is Kestius Budrys, which I apologize. I'm sure that is not the way you say this guy's name. He's Lithuanian. He's the Lithuanian foreign minister. And he is making some stern warnings. Quote, "This is Holy Week. We're approaching Easter. I have no doubt that Russia has something even more terrible in store for us at Easter. If we don't open negotiation chapters with Ukraine, if we fail on sanctions, then we can no longer talk about any geopolitical subjectivity of the EU. We can no longer claim to have any influence in the world." So it's both a warning and a call to action to the EU that Russia is planning something bad and it is on the way, and we better do something about it. RBC Ukraine went on to write, after the terrorist attack in Sumy on Palm Sunday, the Lithuanian foreign minister stressed that this may only be the beginning of an even more terrible attacks from the Kremlin, especially at Easter. And you can almost be sure that city centers, places of worship on Easter Sunday will be targeted by the Russians, especially in those far eastern cities. While I was preparing this report, this breaking news item was published by the Kyiv Post. Zelensky just warned that Russia may launch more strikes before and after Easter. Intelligence data points to a growing threat. Could it be the much vaunted Oreshniks that we have heard so much about? We haven't seen a Kinzhal strike on Kyiv in some time. Have they been hoarding up those Kinzhals, the hypersonic missiles, or the Zircons, their other hypersonic missile, as they prepare for something devastating come Easter? We have just a few days to go, so we shall see. Now, inside Europe, this is the Slovakian PM Fico, who is a Putin fan and has said that he will go to Moscow for the May Day ceremonies, the Victory Day parade May 9th. The EU representative Kaja Kallas told reporters in Luxembourg on Monday that any participation in the 9 May parades or celebrations in Moscow will not be taken lightly by the European side, considering that Russia is really waging a full-scale war in Europe. We made it very clear that we do not want any candidate country, Slovakia is a candidate country, to participate in these events on the 9th of May. Callas said, calling on the member states to send their representatives to the capital of Kyiv instead. Now, for his part, Fico blew these comments right off. He found them disrespectful and said, Mrs. Callas, I would like to inform you that I am a legitimate prime minister, which is questionable, of Slovakia, a sovereign country. Nobody can order me where to go or not to go. I will go to Moscow on 9 May. And he's not the only one. Serbian President Vučić confirmed that he will attend Russia's May 9th parade in Moscow, despite EU warnings that the visit could jeopardize Serbia's path to EU membership. And despite the fact that he has suffered for 5 months of anti-government, anti-Russian protests in his country. The people have been in the streets for 5 months protesting government corruption. It led to the resignation of the prime minister, but not the resignation of this fucker, who is the real power of the throne here. Now, this is in addition to the Serbian government in Belgrade granting more than 200 Russians with links to the Kremlin and Moscow's intelligence agencies naturalized nationality in Serbia. It's the same kind of scam Donald Trump is running with his gold card, green card bullshit. Become a U.S. citizen, just pay me $5 million. Now, one has to ask, why are 200 Russian oligarchs fleeing the country and getting citizenship in Serbia? Could it be that they see the end is coming and they are looking for a place to hide? Dear God, I hope that's what it is. Peskov was doing his regular daily clown show yesterday, and in response to Germany's assertion that they're going to send Taurus missiles, said Mr. Merz supports various measures that can and will inevitably lead to a new escalation of the situation around Ukraine. What he's talking about here, he's repeating the old escalation lie, right? That we're going to nuke Berlin if you send Taurus missiles to Ukraine. The Europeans, the Americans, and the Ukrainians have crossed every red line the Russians have put down. Why should now be any different? Why should anybody listen to these weak, lying bullies? Why are we not organized against them? It is frightening to me how these guys can run rampant over the rules-based order of the world, and we seem unable to stop them, in the same way that we seem unable to stop Trump in the United States. According to Peskov, the German chancellor advocates for a hardening of the conflict, a similar position observed in other European capitals. Unfortunately, Mr. Peskov went on to say, it's true that European capitals aren't inclined to seek ways to achieve peace talks, but are rather inclined to provoke further continuation of the war. To make this statement, when the only one pursuing war is you, flies in the face of all reason and rationality. It is a crime and a sin, and nobody should listen to anything these fuckers say. Now, at the same time that top Ukrainian officials are in Paris, meeting with U.S. officials, including Marco Rubio and Representative Witkoff, along with Emmanuel Macron, the Russians are bombing Dnipro. They're bombing. Remember, they sent, I think, 4 Iskanders last night. And some of them landed in Dnipro, killing at least 3, among them a child. At least 30 Ukrainians. And then another dozen people or so were injured in the Dnipro attack. This was not the only attack that happened even as they were meeting in Paris, or getting ready to meet in Paris. This is the ice skating rink in Kherson. Kherson is getting pummeled, right? And I don't know what military applications there are for the ice skating rink in Kherson, it's just Russia doing what it does, destroying everything in its path. Now, this is video of a missile strike or a glided aerial bomb attack, daytime attack on residential buildings in Kherson. You can see those are apartment buildings, apartment blocks, and they are just being leveled. Kherson City is within artillery range of the Russian forces on the left bank of the Dnipro. Now, these were glided aerial bombs, not artillery. But it is worth pointing out that every part of Kherson that's within artillery range is being systematically leveled, and they've been doing it for months. They're just pounding the shit out of a city that was close to 1 million people before the war and now houses less than 50,000. That's it for me, guys. That's the news that we are waking up to for Thursday, the 17th of April. I'm Peter Alexievich, and we will see you all in the live at 5. Thanks.